Just want to share that with you, that it will be recorded. Also, this presentation, I have the PowerPoint slides. I will be sharing that with everyone after today's meeting. So don't feel you have to take, get a cramp trying to take all the notes. We won't have this available for you. So here we go. Dan, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Jean, and thank you, ABC. I'm going to actually turn it over to the administrator, Fran Chesnick, because he was going to do the introduction. You're welcome.
No, but thank you. Yeah. So I want to thank ABC first of all, for participating in this. This is a big initiative for the department. It's going to benefit all employers of ABC as well as other contractors throughout the state for compliance with labor laws and fair bidding processes going forward, and the protection of employees. And as I always say, it's great for taxpayers of Delaware. So I want to thank everybody again for participating, and on whether you're here live or virtual, we appreciate it. I'll be brief. I know some people know me, I'm not brief, so I'm going to go quick so Dan can talk, so he'll give you most of the information. Just want to start off to see how we got to where we are today. And a quick little story of how this whole thing came from fruition is about 3 years ago, we received some information from an employer but employees were calling us saying an employer was created a craft training program for convicted felons to enter back into the workforce. They created a beautiful 16-step program of how they're going to train these workers to get them back into the construction business and employed, and they would get a certificate similar to a pre-registration. Looked great on paper, everything was really good. As things went forward, we started hearing after the first 2 weeks that these students were actually out working and performing construction tasks on site at some of the employees of the employer's house. They were paying them, but they weren't paying them for all hours. So, we contacted the employer and we said, what's going on here? There's supposed to be a 16-week program. It looks great. 2 weeks now, these guys are in the field working, and you pay them sometimes, and sometimes you don't. Why is that? Well, this is training. They're getting training. And, what we came back was, well, no, they're actually working. If we take the definition from the Wage Payment Collection Act, if you're suffered to work, you need to be paid remuneration. So that started a big thing, and that was a big public outcry. It was in the paper. I won't name who it was, but Bobby Marshall got involved, who was a big labor supporter back in his day in the Senate. The unions got involved. And, as we went through things, we did get the workers' payback, which was a good thing. Took some time. But, talking with our former secretary, Sarah Kate, who would be here probably talking instead of me, and he's a better talker than I am, but I guess I get to step in now. He was like, well, how do we protect these workers? And not only that, how do we protect the employers who do the right thing? And, these other people have disadvantages when they go to bid. And a lot of our business owners here or high level management, you guys all know when you go out to bid a job, you're like, well, how did this guy beat me by 30%? Like, again, there's got to be something, especially on public work. The wage rate set, basically. Unless they got a great deal on material or whatever, how did I lose that bid? I did everything. You go back, you talk to your estimator, like, what went on? So, that was a concern as well. So Saran and I talked, and this is something that Dan and I wanted for years. And I said, what, we should do a contractor registration. And he's like, well, what's that? And I said, how'd you come up with that? I was like, well, I'm no genius. I stole it from New Jersey. They do it. They do it for public works, where they basically vet the contractors, make sure that they're complying with labor laws, and make sure that the workers are protected. So Saran's like, oh, that's a great idea. He goes, so let's run with it, but let's do it for all construction. So, Secretary Cade, brought it up, went down, went to Lake Hall, spoke to Senator Walsh and other people down there, Representative Mosinski, Kim Williams was involved, former Senator Anthony DiColo was involved. It was a great thing. Went through, put a bill out there, had a couple amendments, 2 years ago. We got delayed because of COVID. We also had to do the registry, which takes time to register these people. So that's where we are today. So what the registry is going to do is it's going to make sure that all employers are compliant with labor laws, again, to protect their workers, and to make sure there's going to be a fair bidding process, whether on a state job or any construction job within the state. And the department will enforce it. Each contractor will get a certificate, which will be valid for 1 year. And then after that, if they're compliant for 2 years, again, Dan will get into more of the weeds, they can come back and register for 2 years in a row at a reduced rate. Because there is a fee, obviously, because we are performing a service. So that's kind of like where we're at today. And I'm going to kind of let Dan take it over and talk about how to register, what you will need, things of that nature. And one thing I'm sorry to say, I will have to cut out here at 11 because I got another call at 11. So what I will ask for everybody, this is kind of like my end, is we need participation, not only from ABC contractors, but all contractors. If ABC contractors are out working on site and they're registered to have a certificate, every contractor should be out there, should have a certificate. We need help with everybody. We have a staff of 9 officers. We cannot cover the whole state of every construction site in Delaware. It's impossible. So we are asking for all contractors to make sure that all contractors on the site of construction have a certificate. If they don't, let us know. And again, there is liability for the people who hire these contractors that, you know, come from out of state, or the underliers, I call them, within Delaware that don't want to comply with the laws of Delaware. Those people need to be held accountable, just like the people who are getting their certificate are going to be held accountable. So it's a big lift for the department. We're asking for everybody's cooperation with this to make it successful, and then hopefully we'll have full compliance with everything. So that's my end game right there. So again, I just want to thank everybody for inviting us. I hope I wasn't too long, but now I'll let Dan take over. And if I missed anything, I'm sure I'll cover it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Fran. Jean, is it okay to start the presentation? All right. My cell phone. All right, everybody, welcome. This is basically Delaware Contractor Registration Act. I'm going to call it part 1. We're going to do it a little bit. And today for the presentation, Fran has done most of the introduction. I'm going to cover the requirements and information needed to register. And basically, the last part will be an overview of liability under the Contractor Registration Act. Len Brooks, I will be often referring to Len sometimes like we've met, we know each other. So he's kind of, I'm sure he'll say something at me at some point. No. You've already got some weird question at the end. I can see it coming. So with the introduction, Fran has introduced himself. Many of you know him. He is the administrator of the Office of Construction Industry Enforcement. Some of you may know me by name. Some I probably have met in person. I'm Dan Nelson. I'm the supervisor of the Office of Contractor Registration. I moved to Delaware in 2003. Wife and I have been here, raising our kids. Delaware's been great to us. As you can see, I'm kind of a nerdy looking guy. I like to read. I'm into competition shooting. And you might be like, well, why are you telling us this? Because if you want to distract me, ask what I'm reading and start talking about guns, and you will definitely get me off track.
Or philosophy.
Or philosophy, yeah. So they'll find that out when they bring up the books. I was having a great conversation with Jean before the presentation got going. I got here very early. One of the things that we want to start giving the information now is the Contractor Registration Office has an actual website. So here it is with our office phone number, because we understand penetrating the bureaucracy, like who do I talk to at the department? In this presentation, you're going to start seeing names and contact information for various offices. So you know who to contact or who to refer other businesses to or friends to. And with us today, we have representatives from our Office of Workers' Compensation, our Office of Safety and Health, Construction Industry Enforcement, which would be all our labor law enforcement officers should be on here. Jim is one of them, and he is with us here personally. And our unemployment division is also here today represented.
Dan, if I could add one thing.
Sure.
That phone number, 7739, is just for contractor registration. We do have another general number for the Department of Labor, and that can be trying sometimes to get a hold of our office. So one thing we wanted to do is have a direct email if you have questions about contractor registration, and I am committed to make sure that these questions are answered within 24 hours. So if you don't get a hold of us by the phone and don't get a live person, you can email us at that, and I will guarantee we will answer that thing in 24 hours. I've made that commitment because this is very important to the department. And again, contractors, all you guys have enough to do already. You don't need to be waiting and waiting for us to answer you. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Fran. So Fran covered some of the why would you do a Contractor Registration Act? The investigation he talked about was a bit unique, but overall, it's about employee misclassification. There was like, well, what's that? It's when you call a worker an independent contractor and they're actually an employee. Well, what's the difference? Well, you control an employee. You tell them what to do, where to show up, you control their pay. For independent contractors, it's not the case. It's all done through written contracts, protected that way. So this is it's an issue in all industries, but particularly in the construction industry, it's a very large issue. And one of the reasons why it is, Fran brought it up in bidding. If a company or owner decides to misclassify its employees, depending upon the state, you'll save 20 to 40% on your labor costs. This is why companies who do pay into workers' comp, or they have a policy or unemployment insurance, this is why you can't compete and you never will. And I'm not bringing up those statistics to incentivize misclassifying people, but it just puts it in perspective, the bids that Fran has brought up. Well, no wonder, and unfortunately, again, it's from in-state contractors to out-of-state contractors do this. So the Registry Act itself, in its base, what it's going to do is, because you have to register with the Department of Labor to work, it casts a large net to impede or catch the violators. Well, how does it do that? Well, again, just two quick examples, although I'll cover more later, is unemployment insurance and workers' comp. If you list you have employees, you have to submit a valid workers' comp policy. Same with, you have employees, you have to have an account with the unemployment division. So right there, it's going to catch, even if they're out of state or you register. Where's your workers' comp policy for Delaware? Not Idaho. Oh, good, that's your home state. It's got to be for Delaware. And that's what it'll do, is that's one way it protects the local businesses that are paying into this. The ABC members. And again, Len and I have had conversations about this. He understands just based on the information we have traded. And ultimately, it also protects the workers. Because again, two examples, they get injured, God forbid, on a job. The policy is there to cover them. They get laid off because it's a slow time in the winter, or a job that was bid on wasn't awarded. These employees can now draw their unemployment benefits.
I'm on a Zoom thing for the contractor registration. So did you get the
That's okay.
Okay. All right. Bye.
We're just waiting to mute somebody. Yeah, I'll get to that.
I'm gonna have to get back to stop share for a second.
That's okay. We're just taking care of some technical stuff. Well, Gene is. I'm just watching. Well, we're all watching. That's okay. All right. So pay attention. And what we're going to now cover is the requirements for a successful registration. And the first one is, where do you register? The Delaware One Stop. And this is the exact website to register on. Again, this is being recorded. ABC knows this can be shared with all of its members, so you will have this information. Your email. Now, Fran didn't cover it, so do you want to cover this part?
Yeah, I'll cover it. This is
Okay.
my issue. So currently, we had a group of testers and to test our system, which went really well, and we had some ABC members do that. In addition, we have just rolled out last week a soft launch for 100 contractors, which included some of the ABC contractors. One of the issues right now is when you go to the One Stop, the first thing to access the registry account, it asks you your email address. Now that email address they want is the one you used when you registered your business. I think the One Stop's been up for 2 years maybe, or maybe a little less. So say, for example, somebody in your office, one of your office staff registered your business and got your business license, that's the email you need. So if an officer or the owner wants to go in, they should use that. What we have realized is they don't know the email address, or like Len was saying, well, somebody that registered us might have left our employee, which I don't know who that is. So unfortunately, which we have elevated this to the one-stop, you can't recover that email address currently. So I sent out additional instructions. Again, this is only for the soft launch. When the real launch is in July 1st, which would be that one-stop email address, everything will be fine. You'll get the registry ready, but you still need to know the email address, which is a challenge. So what we did, we elevated it to the one-stop, so you can either recover your email by maybe, again, I don't know how they're going to do it. My suggestion was simply enter your business license, and then your email address comes up. And the next question was, do they have the ability to change it? Say, for example, Len had somebody that left their employee, and now he wants to have the ability to change that email address, so he receives all the communication. Because all the communication from the one-stop that we're going to use is going to go to that email address. We will still send out letters and notifications, but we will also do it by email. So if Len uses the email of the person that left 2 years ago, that person's going to get emails, and they may not work there anymore. And Len's will be like, well, I didn't get no notification. So that is one thing we're in the process of. One of the many things we discovered with the one-step that needs some adjustments. So we're in the process of doing that. But right now, for the people who are on the soft launch, you can, I'm not a big fan of this, but they say you can create another account and work that way. Now, the question is, well, how do we merge it now? That's another thing we're working on with the one-stop of how, Len, who somebody used their email, isn't there no more. So, Len wants to do his business license, but he doesn't want to have two accounts. How do we merge that? So that's another challenge we are working through with the one-stop. And we're not the owner of the one-stop, Department of Labor. The one-stop is actually owned by Government Information Services. So they own the one-stop. The Department of Labor doesn't, because obviously revenue's involved, corporations involved. It's the one-stop shop for everything. So somebody's got to be there. So we're in the process of getting that squared away. So excuse us for that issue, because what I don't want is people saying, what's the Department of Labor's fault? This one isn't.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. The suggestion actually comes from a conversation that I had with Len, that if you're creating, say you don't have a one-stop account, and it will get straightened out, like, well, what email should we use? Because we lose office staff. And I will cover this again. I will sound a little bit like a broken record. Do not have staff fill out this form. And I'll get into the reasons why. But Len says that Georgia Lynch has a general email that the officers get the email, correct? Mm-hmm. So you can create like info at, Nelson Drywall Inc. and, at gmail.com, something of that nature, and the officers have access to it, or it emails them. That way, all one-stop notifications, the top people are getting them, because that is the point of how this registry works. So thank you, Fran. Sorry to just throw that on you.
That's fine. I got to memorize that.
All right. Here's what you need to successfully register. And this goes in the exact order of how you will see it on the one-stop. Now, it doesn't look the same, but the questions will be the same, and the information that you need. The first one is very simple. Your FEIN, your ITIN, or your social security number. Social security number would be for somebody, a sole proprietor, like a truck driver, that they own their truck and business for themselves, that is why the SSN would be required. Your Delaware business license number. The number is found on your license. If you're looking at it in the upper left-hand corner above post conspicuously is where you can find it. So you will need your number. All right, it's going to ask the type of work you do. Well, what's that mean? You choose, you only do private work. This means non-state funded work or non-prevailing wage work. Like all I do is site work and housing developments. I never go on rate jobs. Okay, then that is what you would choose. Or you might be like, well, no, I only do public works. I only do schools, government buildings and roads. Then the fee would be $300. Or you do both, and it would be $500. Now, this is per year, and Fran did bring it up, that if you do 2 successful years of registration with no labor law violations, then you have the opportunity to register for a 2-year time period and for a reduced fee. But that's something that I would like to cover in a part 2 discussion, because again, we're just all launching into this together for the first year. Next thing you'll need is your full company name. If you have a trade name and doing business as, the system is going to ask for that name. Your contact information, your primary business address, fax number, if you still have one. Gene told me that, no, they're still out there. And an email. Again, this might be, you want this, whoever this email you put in, if we contact through the registry, that's who's going to get it. If it's a staff member and they leave, that email would just end up sitting there. Your mailing address, your registered agent or custodian of records. So if you're an out-of-state company, you have to have a Delaware registered agent. If you're an in-state company, you get essentially a little bit of a choice, I'll call it. You could have a Delaware registered agent or a custodian of records. What's that? I'm going to use the sole proprietor example again. So the truck driver, Nelson Trucking LLC, use myself as an example. My business address is a PO box. The custodian of records is actually me as the owner, and it has to be a physical address. So let's say it'd be my home address, because it has to be where it basically the records custodian who can be served legal documents. PO boxes are not accepted. That ended up could get your application rejected, or there'll be communication back and forth. It'll delay your application. So it's something we want to be clear on with that. Corporate officers, publicly traded. You can enter the names and their titles into the one-stop, or you could make an Excel spreadsheet with them all beforehand and upload it. Like example, John Doe, CFO. And there is an option in the one-stop to submit it later. I'm going to cover that just because, let's say, oh man, so-and-so is not on this list, and say it's a locked Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes that'll happen. Have to wait for tomorrow. That's fine. You could still submit the application and then choose the submit later option, and then upload it the next day through the account, which then we would receive at the department. Or say you didn't have it together, that something happened, is like, oh man, my file crashed, whatever the case may be. It is an option, but I'm going to cover that a little bit more later. Fran and as a Jim and we want you to be very careful with the submit later option. Number 10 will be choose your business type, sole proprietor, a corporation. There's more choices than that. That was a little limit I found. Employees. Do you have employees? It's just going to ask yes or no. If it says yes, it'll be how many. And there will be some click boxes, 1 to 10, 11 to 19, 20 or more. And from there, it will ask you for your state unemployment insurance account number. It's a 5 digits, a dash, and another number. I'm sure Wynell or Mike Brittingham are with us. They'll say, no, Dan, it's this many digits, but most of you know what this is. And this is an important part. If you don't have that unemployment tax number, and you have, there's 2 parts to this, and you have employees, you'll have to get that account. The other part of this is an unemployment tax is if your business owes $5,000 or more, and you do not have an active payment plan with unemployment collections unit, you will not be registered. Actually, you'll end up facing what's called a denial. However, Wynell Scott and Mike Brittingham, Mike, I apologize, I didn't get you on our slide. They are here today, and I have passed out, Wynell's information is on the screen, but also I gave Jean a nice stack of Wynell's cards. So she loves to talk about unemployment insurance. So does Mike. Mike, if you can put your email and contact information into the chat, that'd be appreciated. But please, this is who you would talk to if you know, oh man, I know I owe more than $5,000. Wynell is who you would contact to start to get that process underway, so that debt is alleviated or you're making the payment plan. Next for employees is proof of workers' compensation. It's going to ask you to enter the expiration date on your current policy, And then you must upload the policy, not the declaration page, the full, actually, however big policy it's going to be. And we can take the file size. If you're not sure, your insurance agent should be able to send that to you over in a PDF as an option. And if, say, all that's going wrong, you can get it to us in alternate ways. You could actually drop off a physical copy. We will be eventually opening back up here now that COVID, thank God, is ending. There's ways to email it to us. So we can work on alternate methods to getting it if you're having some kind of issue for some reason. And this is another big thing. Any changes in your policy, you must provide them to the Office of Contractor Registration. And we're talking when you are registered. So if your policy, say it cancels, you register July 1st, you get approved by July 5th, and you have your certificate, but you put a date of 12/15/2021 in, whatever new, when you get your new policy, you have to upload it and provide it to us. So please be aware of that provision. Again, this is the only other thing that has a submit later option, simply because it can be voluminous, or we were concerned there could be problems with the upload and we didn't want to slow the process. But again, and I'll cover it more later, please do not hold, the submit later does not mean I'll do it when I get around to it. It's just the option so you can get into your application into the registry. And for workers' compensation, so you have any questions, again, to penetrate the bureaucracy, Rob Rotenberry is the supervisor in our Office of Workers' Compensation, and he even was kind enough to give up his phone number. And is he an Eagles fan?
Yeah, but he gave the wrong phone number.
That's posted.
Yeah, it should be 302. Either you typed it wrong.
No, man, I'm thinking of Maryland.
No, it's phone number, but that's okay.
No, my old Maryland days are coming in, 301.
It's 302.
It's 302. We're in Delaware. Think of 302 gear, and so I apologize. Figured that
I probably
happens.
gave you the wrong number.
No, I looked on the thing and I typed the wrong number. I have to own this one. But the only thing he loves talking more about Eagles is workers' comp. So give him a call. He lives for it. And it's 302. Thank you. All right. The next question is going to ask, for the last 2 years, so that's the 2 years from the date you're trying to register, have you violated any of these laws? And again, it's check boxes. And it's going to ask the date of violation. And the date of violation is the violation letter you received. We have customarily called them closure letters. We are going to change our letters a little bit in the Office of Construction Industry Enforcement. So it's clear that somebody's receiving a violation letter. Please do not let that title throw you off per se. It's so going forward when you're registering, you understand what you've received as a business. Same with certain settlements. They are to be, it's the same thing, settlement, this law settlement, the date of the settlement when it was signed would be the date, or any court decision. Now, if you're unsure, you can contact Fran or I, and we can help, because we understand it might be, well, I think I had one, I got a letter from him, but I don't remember what it was about. I mean, that was a year ago. Also understand this is about honesty. If people are like, why would you ask this? That it's, again, having a background in law enforcement and some of others in our unit, we had to go through polygraph tests. They're asking to see how honest you would be when they ask them the kind of embarrassing question. You're smiling, Jim. There's a reason, and it's kind of a very much more mild version of that. And there's also to catch any maybe chronic violators that are trying to slip through the system. Again, this is a wide net. And are you currently, the next question will be under investigation for Delaware, and you'll choose from the following laws. And I know, Gene, I messed up and didn't have discrimination dropped under child labor. So, but again, it's click boxes asking if you are. And then the next question is investigation or litigation currently with the federal labor law. And if you click yes, it has just a details box that you'll type the information in on. Believe it or not, we have an active and good relationship with the U.S. Department of Labor and the IRS. It was born out of an investigation that started with me some time ago. Len is smiling because he's very aware of that investigation as well. So me. No, we could say it was not Georgia Lynch. But it's with that, believe it or not, a company that we might not know coming into Delaware that have egregious violations of labor laws. And that would be the question is that a company that we would want working in Delaware? Because of what the current litigation they have. Because again, it puts all the local businesses now at serious risk, and we may not know about
Yes,
this.
if I could add one more thing, John, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So currently, the Department of Labor has an MOU with the state of New Jersey, the state of Maryland, and the state of Pennsylvania to combat, these egregious contractors or bad actors working in these states. So, we're going to share information with those states. They're sharing information with us now of any, incidents of, bad habits or bad actors, we call them. So just to be aware, that's something that, all the states in this area are involved in. No state wants a unscrupulous contractor working in their state, breaking labor laws, not allowing the fair bidding practices and mistreating their employees. So we just signed Maryland on. We're looking to actually add New York next. And after that, I think we're to go into Connecticut. So we meet like once a month and just talk and share information. We also have an MOU signed with the US DOL as well for information sharing. Just want to point that out.
No, thanks, Fran, because that's just to bring up a case that we could, this is the press announcement out of Pennsylvania. If you didn't hear, the company's Glenn Hawbaker, I think is how you pronounce it. Is anybody aware of that? You see, this company we're doing a lot longer than that, but essentially stole $20 million from their employees' fringe benefits accounts, diverted the money. Now, that is a company, if we didn't know about that, this company did a lot of prevailing wage work in Pennsylvania. Most of the laws are somewhat similar. Now they set up base here in Delaware, and we wouldn't know who they were. And that's the kind of scam they were running in PA. Again, this is where the registry is designed to hopefully catch that in the first part of the net.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing, that came out of the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. And one thing, our current Attorney General is very interested in our findings of contractors who are continuously breaking laws and mistreating their workers. There could be, other, offenses, levied against contractors going forward. Because that thing came out of, was it, his name? Shapiro. Yeah, it was a big announcement. I mean, these guys worked for like 20 years in Pennsylvania, and, they appeared to be reputable. But, in the meantime, they were cheating their workers the whole time and, lining, the owner's pockets and using the money to buy equipment and things of that nature, when this was actually the employees' money that they were taking. So, those are the kind of things, we're looking out for as far as, the fringe benefit side on prevailing wage work, where they are taking money from workers and using it for their convenience. Like I said, to buy equipment or put the money in a kitty for when they retire, things of that nature. So just to put that out there with the Attorney General.
And to give some background on why these questions are getting asked and the requirements under the law, that this actually, the law requires these. Okay, the next one, if you have been convicted of a home improvement fraud or new home construction improvement fraud, it is what it is. They'll be separate, but it's yes or no. And if you answer yes, I don't believe it asks for details. I think it will flag us that you have been. And this is for Delaware. No, it's just in general, it's all over. It is there. All right. 17, OSHA safety plan. Do you have an OSHA, what's commonly referred to an OSHA safety plan? It's yes or no. If yes, it just goes on. If you say no, we will still process your application, and you'll have 90 days to get and submit a safety plan to the department. Now, these plans can be got through third party. And if you were working with some type of consultant to get a plan and you're running up on your 90 days, don't worry, we will have communication back and forth with you. That we understand if you're actively working on it, we will see that because we're in communication. But just so everybody knows, our Office of Safety and Health provides free assistance in creating safety and health plans that are OSHA compliant. I got 302 right this time. This is their number. Tracy Fraley's their administrator. Some of you know Tracy. She's great to work with. The two individuals' emails are her construction, her employees who oversee kind of the construction side of the safety and health office. The Johns, as I call them, they're down the hall from me. that they're excited to help out with this. So it's just another service that we offer and wanted to give their information directly. One of the other questions it's going to ask is, what's your NAICS codes? And just choose which ones apply. You can even add some. There's a little button for other and punch in all that apply. The final thing will be a signature page. Again, this must be an officer. They'll agree to the terms and conditions, and then you'll make payment. And payment is either by credit card or business check. With the requirements, there's just a few more to discuss, and this is going to start bleeding into the basic liability, just so everybody is aware of what the law says in certain situations. So some application tips. As I said previously, an officer or owner must fill out the form. Please do not have a staff member do it. The reason why is it needs to be filled out completely, fully. Again, a staff member, we understand, they're smart, they can do it. But this is where the issue can come in. So the submitted later portions, the company officers or your workers' comp policy. If we get a form that's not filled out completely, or after a certain amount of time, we don't get that workers' comp policy or the officers, the liability of the act starts to come in. And the first thing a company could face is rejection of their application. Again, if it's not filled out, it's missing information. Information was not submitted. And what that does is, well, what's that mean? It means you'd have to fill the whole form out again and completely, or it faces rejection again, and you have to pay all the fees that apply again. So the fees are non-refundable. So please, this is again why Fran and I and the other officers are adamant that officers fill this thing out. Okay, let's say, well, I'll get around to it. You know, what happens if I'm caught working unregistered? I've never seen a bricklayer smile this much. Not that they're miserable, but it was the best one I could find. If you're working and not registered after the law becomes active, the company can face penalties and the denial of your certificate. Penalties means fines. There's actually a monetary penalty. And we would have a pathway. We'd be like, we need to get registered to come into compliance. But depending upon how that part of the process went, that's where a denial could come in and the possibility of not working. If you hire an unregistered, you're registered, but you hire an unregistered subcontractor, then both you and the unregistered contractor can face fines, penalties, the denial to the unregistered, or suspension or revocation of your certificate to the registered contractor. Again, this is can or may. Again, I'd like to do a part 2 to cover more of this. Labor law violations. As Fran had kind of was alluding to earlier, and we've been talking about, you know, chronic violators, repeat violators of Delaware labor law. Again, what can happen under the Contractor Registration Act is that business or businesses can face penalties along with the denial, suspension, or revocation as well. Now, this was a question that Len asked me a long time ago, because I know this is the big one. General contractor liability, like what's the GC? Because many of you know under the prevailing wage law, if one of the subcontractors refuses to pay the wage for whatever reason, the general contractor is ultimately liable. This works a little bit different under the Registry Act. So GC is registered, hires registered contractors, but the GC doesn't know that Nelson Painting, you know, and decorating, I'm so busy and overextended, I bring a friend on who has a business, but they're not registered. What would happen is if one of our officers discovered this, is it could go a couple different ways, but they would let me know that, hey, you've hired an unregistered sub. That subcontractor must be removed from the site immediately. That directive will also be given to the general contractor as well. So on the chance that I'm like, well, I got to get this job done. I don't care what you do, Department of Labor. Len comes in as the GC and says, you know, Dan, get them off the job, or, you know, I'm throwing them off the job then, and, you know, I'm penalizing you or whatever might work out between our relationship. The GC at that point has done their due diligence. You know, and there will be some stuff with that I'd like to cover more in depth again in a part 2. But understand, any unregistered subcontractor that's working on the job, the first thing it can cause for a GC is project or work delays. If I have overextended myself and I was using that sub to keep up on the job, and they're wearing Nelson Painting and Decorating shirts, you might not know it's the GC until we notified that, hey, wait a minute, those workers are actually with, Judzik Painting is who they're with. He's not trying to throw you under the bus. So, but if I'm on another job, now Len's job is getting dragged out because, I can't get back to it for 3 weeks. Again, I know there's contract things that would handle that, but that's when your first problem. And again, the failure to comply with the directive, that can ultimately could lead to fines and penalties, verification or suspension for the GC certificate. So just to clarify where kind of the liability could come in. All right, when do I have to register? Well, that's the big question. If you are working on a public works project, the prevailing wage, like July 1st comes and you're on that thing, you must have your application and payment submitted to the department by August 1st. Submitted. It'll be sitting in our system as long as it's in there between those 2 dates and all the information is submitted, it's good. Now, if you're working on private work, July 1st, or maintenance, landscape, tree cutting, you must obtain a certificate before work begins. So the scenario is this: you only do new homes, developments and houses. You're like, well, I'm doing 10 houses right now. I signed the contract May 1st, 2021. You're going to be doing that work all the way till November 2021. You don't have to have your certificate yet. And this is, again, private work only. But let's say, you're like, well, I have a new development starting December 1st, 2021. You need to have your certificate before that work begins. Now, I know some of you do both, both private and public work. So again, when you choose both as your selection and you submit, you're already in the system. But again, for the companies that only do the private work, it's got to be before you start any new work. Not, I got to get that, I started my work. No, before the work starts. And we take up to 30 days to process some of these applications. We hope to be always much quicker and exceed your expectations, but it is a possibility. All right, so in wrapping it up, again, part 2, I have officers and other staff that are becoming subject matter experts very quickly in this law. We would like to come back out to ABC. We might invite ourselves if we don't get an invite as we get this together. Thank you, Gene. But to cover the deeper parts of the law, the due process, if for some reason a company found itself in violation of the law, what you could face, what the process would look like as you could go through it, expectations of contractors. There's all types of questions we know you're going to have, and we'd really like to do the deep dive maybe a little bit later, simply because we need to get everybody to get registered. The first and foremost is the foremost important part is a successful registration. And also the door is open to any topic. It's probably been about a month now. I did a talk with Delaware Contractors Association about certified payroll submissions. Loved it, had a great time. Fran and I are very, very big advocates of public outreach. And we know that our office has not always had a history of that, but now that we're in the positions that we're in, we love to come talk, and we often prefer in person because the more organic back and forth. We can answer in emails, but sometimes there's a subtlety or a nuance that it's sometimes hard to do with the written word, especially when you're a bureaucrat. We have to write a certain way. Some of you have read our letters. So please, that door is open to ABC and the membership, that any topic, but we would love to come back and do contractor registration part 2. We want to say thank you to those of you who have jumped in on, first of all, supporting all of this, but especially in the soft launch. And if you're in and you've submitted your application and payment, we'll be reviewing your application. And as long as there's no contact, like, hey, you're missing information or something of that nature, it will approve you July 1st. Be a lookout on that email, whatever one that you use, that your certificate's going to come over in a PDF format. So questions answered here, even the silly ones.
I have, if you don't mind,
Sorry, Brad.
one more thing, one or two more things I'd like to add before the questions come on board. I guess the big question is, what's the benefit of me registering? So one thing Dan didn't mention, but I'm sure I'll mention in part two is there will be a public website for all contractors to see who's compliant. So if, again, we keep using Len, he's like our main person here. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, Len, but say for example, Len needs to hire a flagging company. So they can go on the public registry, which will be a site that will obviously provide the email to everybody and see all the compliant flagging companies that are registered and have a certificate. So we could choose from one of them. In addition, the public, any person, say, I want to get an electrician to come in and do some work at my house. I could just type in electrician, I could type in a name, I could just say in Newcastle, in this zip code, in Sussex, in Felton, wherever, and they will all pop up. Now, again, we don't guarantee the work. We're not saying the work is going to be good, but we do guarantee compliance, because obviously there's a big thing out there with home improvement fraud. Somebody shows up, oh yeah, I can build you, that give me $5,000. I'll see you in like 3 years. And again, what happens then? The people are out $5,000 and this unscrupulous contractor who shouldn't even be in Delaware is stealing money from people and they don't realize it. So that's a big benefit. Now, again, if somebody gets suspended, we're not going to say, Chudzik Painting suspended. We just will simply remove you from the list for that period of time until compliance is met, and then you'll get back on the list. The way I kind of look at this is a voluntary compliance tool. You want to comply, you'll work in Delaware. You don't want to comply, you just go find somewhere else to work. It's pretty easy. And, for the contractors that do comply, I have a good friend of mine, I won't say who it is, but he's like, it's not bad. But anyway, they say, Fran, I pay workers' comp, I pay unemployment insurance, I do this, I do that. I'll go to jobs and I'll go bid a strip mall, and there's no way this guy can beat my price. He's beat me by 30-40%. And he says to me, why do I follow the laws? What happens to these people? The people that owe unemployment insurance, why are they working in Delaware? The people that don't carry workers' comp to protect the workers, why are they working in Delaware? I said, that's a great question. Why are they? And again, all contractors, obviously ABC supports this, DCA supports it, the building trade support it. Like, when I saw the letter went to Governor Carney that all these groups are supporting it, the home builders and remodelers are supporting it, the AFL-CIO, the Delaware Hispanic Commission. For all these people to support it, it is amazing that everybody's behind this. And again, it's time. It's time that this needs to be done. And the letter that went to the governor, I got a copy of it, and I framed it. But this is the first time I ever seen ABC, DCA, and the building trade agreeing something. And again, like it's not the fight between the unions and non-unions. You guys all comply. It's the underliers, the out-of-state guys. One day I'm a painting company from New Jersey. The next day I'm a roofing company from New Jersey. These people are coming in and undercutting compliant contractors and getting the work that is affecting you guys' livelihood and your employees' livelihood. So again, we are looking forward to doing this. We're very excited. We are looking for support from every ABC contractor, as well as DCA, the Hispanic Commission, the building trade, to get the word out, get registered. There will be some media behind this. Again, we don't have a huge budget being in the Department of Labor, but there will be billboards out there. There will be, we'll be on radio, Dan and Fran show, whatever. We're going to be in a Hispanic community down in Sussex County getting the word out. We're going to be on Facebook. We're going to be on Pandora. I listen to Pandora all the time. I'm like, God, that's a great thing. People listen to Pandora all the time. We're going to be there. Newspaper, no TV. We can't afford TV. I was hoping to be on Channel 3 in the morning, but I guess that ain't going to happen. But, we need to get the word out, because this is a good, like I said, it's a good thing for contractors, it's a good thing for the workers, and it's a good thing for the taxpayers of Delaware. So that's really all I got to say. So, Dan, let's have questions.
Well, one more thing that Fran did. Hold on just a second before you beat on me. Contractor registration is not new. Fran brought up New Jersey, and they kind of, or North Dakota does a version. Virginia for road, which Iowa just passed one not long ago. California's had one, and I'm missing, and I'm missing somebody else. And people are like, wow, that's a lot of diverse different states. And it's like, it's employee misclassification. I have some family, my wife's family's from North Dakota. The oil and gas industry detonated up there. It's as big as the state it is. It's only 500,000 people, or a little bit more. And all these people were coming in and being misclassified. And but wait a minute, you're an employee, but their tax base was having to cover those injured employees and everything, and it was just draining the state. And they're like, no, we're not doing this. So they created their own registry program as well. It's a little stripped down, but it's the same idea. So, all right, go ahead.
So I register as a public company, and then I decide, hey, I'm gonna do some private work.
Did you put him up for this?
Going through our testing process.
Yeah.
That's one thing there's 5 of us, and that's one of the things that actually came up. What if they, registered as public, and then they say later on they want to do private?
Right, and in 3 months, I said, I'm gonna get into site development. I decided there's more work there. Do you re-register? How's that gonna work?
Essentially, how we have to do it, one, the way the law is written and the way the system is set up right now is you're going to pay the fee. Again, you're going to have 2 certificates is what's going to end up happening because the law requires it that way because you chose coming out of the gate, I only do public. So it's like, okay, well, now I want to do private. So for the contractor, it can be a little goofy because now you have 2 certificates expiring at different times. So we're looking to maybe make that process easier, God forbid it happen. Well, what I would say, Len, is if you even remotely think you're going to be doing that work, just get the certificate.
So Dan, we do both state work and then private work, so we would have to pay both fees then.
Yeah, yep. But you'll get a certificate that says you do public and private work, Ron. There won't be 2 certificates by themselves.
One certificate, it'll list both.
Yes.
That would be the $500 fee as opposed to.
Yeah.
And again,
So
they will come electronically to you, like, we're not gonna print them out and hand them to you and frame them, unfortunately. If you want to, you can.
Well, we would mail it if you were like, hey, my computer's on fire. Can you like, because we do have the ability. Yeah, no problem. Like, sorry, man, my computers are burned up. We could get you yours if, again, but we don't. That's why going electronic is so much easier.
Question on the very versatile, need delivered, right?
Question on the fee.
Yes, lot.
Is it annual? Is it prorated? Somebody starts in December, is it
It's
December?
yearly. Whenever you come in,
So
Lyle.
it's not a calendar issue. It's 1 year from date of certificate.
Exactly.
A recommendation, would it be simpler if you, for the purposes of renewal, make it an annual thing and prorate the fee? Consider that.
Yeah, we did consider that. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great.
We did consider, there was a lot of factors that are going forward. And again, this isn't the end of the registry. We will have other phases and phases. So we will definitely take everybody's ideas. Obviously, you guys are in the field. And again, like Dan and I said, we're very open. You're the boots on the ground. We need to hear from you guys. What's good about the registry? What's bad? These are my ideas, and believe me, we may not implement all of them, but we definitely will listen and bring them to our vendor and our project manager. Say, hey, can we do this? And again, pretty much you should be able to do anything you want, but we find based on some programs we can't do everything we want.
Yeah, well, and I would layer my commentary with the thought of, GCs, we can look at, and we're a subcontractor, but we're blessed to have good cash flow. You get a good subcontractor you want to bring on, and you're going to bring in one for one job in December.
Right.
And it's only going to be a quick hit job. That's a lot of money for if we're trying to help labor.
I got you.
That's a big hit for a small sub.
Yeah, that's a good consideration.
So
If you don't mind, if you would mind emailing that to me,
Okay.
What you want to do, I would
I'll
definitely
do
take it under consideration. Thank you.
Is there a less of a fee for, and I think we talked about this, but I can't remember. Like say it's a sole proprietor truck driver. Does he have to pay, if he's doing both public and private, is that one guy paying the $500? There's no reduction like based on the number.
No, and again, we did a lot of the research before, like, am I doing one job? Should I have to pay the same number? Why do 100 jobs? Yeah, those are a lot of factors we did consider. And like, again, this isn't the end of it. Your contractor registration, I'm going to be around for a long time, even when I'm gone. And again, there'll be phases. There'll always be improvements, but these are the kind of things, you guys think of, send it over to us, please. Because like I said, we don't know, we don't know everything, believe me. So.
And that's one thing that I didn't see during the presentation, but as I was joking with Len, one thing that I have the benefit of calling him a good friend. So he might not call me that. He might not call me that. But well, I wanted to face Len while I was saying it. So But when Len comes to me or Fran and says, hey, Dan, this is how this is working on the ground, he's not coming at us with some kind of political ideology. He's coming at us with like real world, like this is how it affects, my business or my workers. Again, Fran said it, we can't implement everything, but we do listen because we know we can trust Len or Chris's, concerns when they come to us. So we're hoping those relationships are built even more.
Yeah, one question about working contract. Does this have anything to do with our material suppliers? If they deliver on the job and you guys have to be there, do they get questioned?
Suppliers are exempt. Yeah, suppliers, because it doesn't meet the definition run of construction services. Is why we're basically construction services is what you all do, landscaping and tree cutting. That's like the fastest definition I can give, but a supplier, no.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone joining us virtually have any questions? You can unmute yourself. Do I have to mute them?
No, they can,
Yeah, they should be able to do individual.
they just said they'll say.
Anyone at all have any questions? Wow, did a great job, Dan.
Well, either that or, I don't know, I'm paranoid by nature. Well, if you don't have questions right now, I don't think some of them, like I said, we're looking forward to a part 2, where we can dive a little deeper into the law.
I did have a question. Steve Shea here from Milestone Construction. What about using union contractors as a general contractor? We're going to have their company registered, but what about their employees who are independent contractors? Does every employee or every union member have to register?
Every union member? Did I understand the question, Steve? Let me repeat it back. You hire a union contractor.
Right.
And sorry, I'm thinking like Superior Electric, not trying to they just came to mind. And they
Right.
have 30 electricians on the job. You're asking, would each of them have to register?
Yes.
No, they meet the definition of employee. So only the electrical company, Superior Electric, has to have a certificate.
But for the Davis-Bacon Act, aren't they considered independent contractors?
Not that I'm aware of. I've
Okay.
not heard union employees considered independent contractors, just the companies that
Okay.
use the union labor. Under Delaware's prevailing wage law has no provision like that. And
Okay.
because I don't enforce the Bacon Act, I'm not sure what that provision would be.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
To the question that was just asked in the chat, yes, it'll take a little while for this to process, but I will send the link out. We'll upload this to YouTube so that this video will be available to be viewed later. So yes, I will send that out to everyone. It just won't be instantly. I don't have my glasses on. Can you read that?
Yeah, I can. Okay, I went on the one stop to renew business license. Can I go back in and add everything else? If I'm understanding the question correctly, there should be a link coming to July 1st that will have Delaware contractor registration, correct, Jim? And the button to click on. If you've been renewing your business license, that means you would already have an account, and it'll get you right into the process.
Anyone else? You can unmute, ask your question. We blocked out 2 hours.
I've got a question. Is there an ombudsman for the Department of Labor?
No, there is not.
Can you get one, please?
Who's that? Who am I speaking with? This
Marion
voice?
Young.
Oh, hey,
Sure,
Mary. How
Marion
you
Young
doing?
at Brightfields. Yeah, we just recently went through an investigation and we still do not understand exactly how the calculations were done. We ended up settling, we just had to get it over with, but we spent probably $15,000 to pay something like $70 out to employees. And we are frustrated and we need help understanding it better.
What I'd recommend is just speaking with Fran or I. We'd be more than glad to talk about that. I can't talk about specifics of anybody's case out in the open, just as an FYI. But if there is some kind of misunderstanding, then I would say, please reach out to us. And we will take the time with you. We have no issue with that.
We need more hand-holding than you guys are able to give us. And so we were hoping for an ombuds person who could help us.
You'd be surprised at how much hand holding we will do.
They like the old hands.
Yeah, actually, Len will vouch for me. You know, that what I was talking to actually Gene about this beforehand, that we understand we're enforcement, but this is why we want to do more outreach like this. Because believe it or not, as investigators, we understand when a company may just have made a mistake, like a true, whoa, we thought we were doing it right. And we would sit down with them and get it resolved. Our issue is, look, we need to get this resolved. We want compliance and employees made whole. So we're hoping to like penetrate through that in some form or fashion. And I will give, this is my personal opinion, employers have a lot of due process rights under our laws. To me, an ombudsman is just going to get in the way. That is another layer of just slowing down what we know we can take care of with contractors who want to sit and meet with us. And I have to say, I'm a little bummed out that there's still some confusion, because it's like, well, that means in one way it didn't get resolved because the company doesn't understand exactly what happened. So again, the door is wide open to have this conversation, but we shouldn't do that here.
So to answer the question in the chat about how to reach out, I have the email addresses and contact information for Dan, Fran, and Jim. So I will include that in my email to everyone with the slides. Wendell's email was in the slides, and I'll also get the other gentleman.
Mike Brittingham.
Mike, I'll get that from you before you go. So I'll have Wendell and Mike Brittingham's email, so they will all be included in my email to you later today that includes the slides. Does that answer the questions I think we got in the chat? How to reach out to everyone? So yes, I will provide that information as well. Anyone else have any questions or concerns? Howard?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me, Gene?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, great. Okay. Couple real quick bullet questions. Okay, so first of all contractors, whether it's public or private, have got to register. That's right?
Yes, that's correct, Howard.
Okay. Second thing, for private jobs primarily, when would we be able to start applying? Would it be immediate or is that
July 1st?
Okay. On private jobs, I understand for new projects on private jobs, we would have to have a certificate before we start the work. Did you say for existing jobs, we would not need to have a certificate or to register?
Yeah, Howard, the best way to phrase it is any work that is started before July 1st, 2021, that is private work, you don't have to have the certificate for that. So if you sign a contract June 29th, or broke ground, the work began at June 29th, 2021, you don't have to have a certificate for it.
Okay. And one last question, just I guess the fundamental reason for this, I understand it's already law, but the fundamental reason was basically for employee misclassification. Was that kind of the driving factor?
Yes, it is the main driving factor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So to answer the question in the chat, when does this become effective? This starts July 1st. July 1st is when contractors need to access either One Stop,
Yes.
to start filling out their information for this. And as Dan said, once you're in the system, it could take up to 30 days for you to receive your certificate. But as long as you have filled out your forms and are in the system, you can begin work on that job.
On public works.
On public works. So July 1st, you fill this out, even though you haven't received a certificate right away, they're processing it and your job starts July 15th, you can start that. Only if July 1st, you have gone into the system and filed and filled out your work.
Hi, Gene. Mike Petka. I have a quick question.
Shoot.
So I didn't hear, you probably said it. I was driving down the road listening. How do general contractors that do not self-perform work and don't have any employees to classify, how do they perform? How do they register?
That's a good question, Mike. I'm actually,
I didn't get the full question.
he's asking the question, the GC doesn't perform any of the work.
Right.
So the question comes in is, I get, what you're asking, Mike, is do they have to register? Correct?
Yes, correct.
That's why I bring my law with me.
All the subs would have to register.
Yeah, but I believe the GC does too.
So it'd be general contractor and construction manager.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you would have to register. I know. You both.
What I'd like to do is answer that in writing, Gene.
Absolutely. So
I think that's
Mike,
one
I
that-
will share your email address with Dan. He's going to do some more review and look up some more details, and we will get back to you on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So there'll be an email conversation with you guys, and I'll make sure you both have that information.
All right, thanks.
Contractors need to be registered prior to submitting a bid.
No, you could submit as many bids as you want. You didn't start the work. You're not actively working on the project.
Okay, so
So nothing else is gonna be asked for on bid forms.
Well, we don't know what the agencies are gonna do, and what we suspect.
Just say nothing's gonna be required.
Well, hold on.
Related to this.
Fran has been talking with some like OMB, and because it will come to the point that we are recommending, you're gonna want those, like a Delaware business license.
Well, right.
You're gonna want those certificates, but at first, nobody has them. So that's kind of like back burner, but we are gonna push down the road for all agencies during your bidding process. Those certificates are there, you know, because what we know can happen is contractors are gonna come in, they'll bid, then get on the job and be unregistered. Because we've seen it with Delaware business licenses, a $75 fee. Oh yeah, I'll get it to you. And you know, your job takes off, everybody's busy, you've got a deadline, and they never get their business license.
And again, if you can produce that, that would be grounds for rejection of the bid, then if they provided on the bid allocated.
Yeah. And look, as GCs, as you're hiring subcontractors, you can certainly put contract language in before, you know, with your bid, I want your certificate. Well, I don't have it. Well, then guess what's gonna happen to your bid? That way it protects you.
So can you post the answer about the GCs need to register? Again, in the email that I'm going to send you all after today's seminar, you will have the email address for Dan, for Fran, for Jim, so that if you want to individually ask those questions, they'll be able to answer those for you. So I hesitate in sharing an answer from Dan to one particular contractor. So if you have his contact information, you can ask him that question directly so that your situation is discussed and it's in private. It's not for everyone to see. Okay?
Just glad you guys know all the answers.
Almost all.
Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself at this point and ask away. The guys are on the clock here for another 50 minutes, so now's the time. Going once, going twice. All righty. Thank you so much for coming today. I'll send out emails. Dan, thank you. Jim, Fran had to step out. Everybody, I hope you have a great Wednesday. Bye-bye.